There is shocking new information tonight about the September 11th terror attack in Libya. Today, Fox News learning that urgent requests for help during the assault on our Benghazi consulate were made and they were denied. Not once, but denied 3 times. A small team of operatives at the CIA annex, not at the consulate, asked the CIA for backup and asked to be allowed to go help those being attacked at our consulate. But Fox News has been told the 3 requests were denied by the CIA chain of command. Now, the CIA says those claims are not accurate. The White House has been reluctant to give out any information about what happened that night. But here is what we do know. Here it is, 8:30 p.m. Libya time. Ambassador Stevens at the Benghazi consulate finishes his final meeting and escorts a Turkish diplomat outside the consulate entrance. All appears normal and calm. An hour and 10 minutes later, at 9:40 p.m., gunfire and explosions erupt near the consulate's front gate. Meanwhile, at about 10 p.m., the main consulate building is already thick with smoke. Ambassador Stevens and colleague Sean Smith, well, they can't get out. 10:05 p.m., a State Department email goes out announcing they know the Benghazi mission is under attack. 10:54 p.m., another email says the firing has stopped and a team is trying to locate personnel. By 11 p.m., the American rescue team finds Smith's body, but not the ambassador. The team then flees the consulate, returns to the CIA annex, which is a mile away. Sometime after midnight, the looters enter the consulate. They find Ambassador Stevens' body and take him to the hospital. 12:07 a.m., another State Department email says an al-Qaeda-linked group claimed responsibility for the attack. 1 a.m., Ambassador Stevens is pronounced dead at a local hospital. 2 a.m., American reinforcements arrive from Tripoli and head to the annex. 4 a.m., the annex comes under mortar fire. Former Navy SEALs Tyrone Woods and Glenn Doherty are killed. Soon after, all remaining personnel evacuate the annex. Now, Bing West is former Assistant Secretary of Defense and author of the book Into the Fire. He joins us. Good evening, Bing.
Good evening, Greta.
Bing, I know you've been critical of how the government handled this from a military standpoint, so tell me.
Well, I think today it got a lot worse, Greta. I think this situation is very serious, and most of the press doesn't want to touch it because many of them are cheerleaders for President Obama. But beyond that, you have to look at what's going on, and that is that President Obama today said that he gave an order to everyone while the attack was going on to do everything they could to secure the personnel. Now, that's really big because that means that those who were turning down Ty Woods when he was asking for the help were going against the orders of the President of the United States. And a chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff doesn't take an order from the President when he says do everything and not put that in writing and send it out to the chain of command. So if that actually happened the way President Obama today said it happened, there's a paper trail. And I think people reasonably enough can say, well, can we see the order? Because hundreds of others supposedly saw this order. But if there is no order, then people have to ask some very basic questions. What the heck happened?
Well, I will tell you that CIA Director Petraeus has said this. He said no one at any level in the CIA, says only in the CIA, told anyone not to help those in need. Claims to the contrary are simply inaccurate. Well, if no one in the CIA did, who did? Because Jennifer Griffin, who broke this story for us, says that she has the best sources from on the ground at Benghazi.
I think Jennifer Griffin deserves the Pulitzer Prize for what she's been doing in this story because she keeps uncovering layer after layer. What really puzzles me is General Petraeus was sort of saying you better look somewhere else outside the CIA, and the military did not send any assets except a drone to watch the battle. I mean, that totally, I just don't understand. When Ty Woods, who's on the ground, says, I need help, I can see the enemy, I have a laser pointer on the enemy, give me some air support, and they don't do it. And then the Secretary of Defense says, well, if I don't have perfect information, I don't think I can put our forces in harm's way. Holy smokes, what do we have forces for? So I think everything comes back to what was happening in the Oval Office. And the President was sitting there, the Secretary of Defense was there, the National Security Advisor, a fellow by the name of Donlan, was there, and General Dempsey was there. And I think the American public have an absolute right to know, did the president actually give the order to move the military to help? And somehow the military decided not to. And I have the gravest reservations that the military just said, no, Mr. President, we're not going to move.
Well, twice today, according to media accounts, the president was asked twice about Benghazi question. It says, were Americans under attack ever denied help? And twice the president didn't answer that question and dodged it. I mean, so I don't know what the president's answer is, but he's had opportunity to answer it, being asked questions, at least by this Denver station. And, you know, and he certainly has the opportunity to get on television and to sort of fill in the blanks so that people can find out what happened. And it's certainly so that, I mean, it almost seems like the humane thing to do for the families.
It's far beyond that, it seems to me. And that is, in all due respect to the families, but also our ambassador is our symbol of America. And the president takes credit for liberating Libya. And Libya doesn't have armed forces. They scarcely had a government. And holy smokes, not to go to save our own ambassador? I don't get it. I really don't get it. And that's why I've been trying to push this. But Jennifer Griffin is the one who's really been doing the hard work on it. And I know you're going to have General Scales on, and he's going to go into what he's heard from his sources. But I have to tell you, my sources said that they didn't hear any order from the president to send in the military.
What do you think? What do you think did happen then? What's your what's a reasonable inference from what you do know?
I really hate to get in the mind of somebody else, but it's pretty manifest that these people at that level had never been in a firefight, and they didn't understand that if you're on the defense at night, the attackers are going to continue to come. They don't just stop for a while. So if they had this notion that they put out that this was a mob, then they could have a reasonable expectation a mob gradually calms down. But if they were terrorists, they won't calm down. And the other thing that the president owes a huge amount of thanks to is the real mob. The mob that came in about midnight and found the body of the ambassador and had the decency to bring him to a hospital. Holy smokes, can you imagine the story we'd be having now if the terrorists instead had come back and taken his body and then taunted us over the phone? So ironically, to a certain extent, the mob really saved the bacon of the president for his re-election to a certain extent.
I think, Bing, we can't also say enough about Tyrone Woods because, and I know that you're supposed to obey commands in the military, but he was told not to go from the annex or to the consulate, and he violated, at least from what I understand, I think from Jennifer's reporting, that he did violate it. He went over there, he couldn't find the ambassador, but he did help other people leave the consulate and save lives. So he gave up his life, and I know that it's a horrible thing in the military not to obey an order, but he wasn't in the military at that time. But he saved an awful lot of lives and gave up his own.
Well, that's the other similarity, Greta. I just wrote this book with Medal of Honor recipient Dakota Meyer. 2 years ago, he disobeyed orders, and he didn't get help from his chain of command for 6 hours. I never thought I'd bump into anything like that. And now we have Ty Woods. He did the same thing. He did the right thing by disobeying orders. Eventually, he paid with his life. And why we didn't have jets overhead to help him, I'm just dumbfounded by that.
And why doesn't his father, who is grief-stricken, why doesn't he have the facts about what happened, the straight story of what happened? Anyway,
I don't know because, okay, I was just going to say, Greta, if you're at a squad level or you're at a company level, and everybody in the Army and Marine Corps listening to me know exactly what I'm going to say. After you're in a firefight, there's an immediate debrief, and everyone is taught you tell the truth, so you get out the good and the bad right away. You don't hide anything. So if you're a general or a secretary of defense or a president, you should have the same rules for you that you have for us.
Bing, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The U.S. should have taken